Well, hello everyone. Long time no see, right? I hope you had a great little coffee break and got to step out for a second. I'm so happy that we're here to start our second session of the day on reducing anxiety for math learners. I think this is very important. And we've got a stellar all-star presenter in Wendy, and I'll introduce her in a minute. I am going to ask that, I'm just going to go ahead and mute everyone just so that we can have our attention focused on Wendy as she's coming on. So I'm just going to do this, and then Wendy, you can unmute when Warner, you're ready. And then I'm going to go ahead. Wendy, I just have a quick thing to share. So if you don't mind, I'll share quick and then turn it over to you. Again, welcome to our second session, Strategies for Taking the Anxiety Out of Math. Just a revision of the housekeeping. Again, Wendy is an engaging, interactive speaker, so she'll ask for comments or questions, and she, you can obviously put things into the chat, and I'd invite you at this time to say hello in the chat to Wendy so she can kind of see where folks are from, and maybe you can put your position, and kind of that would help her to kind of gauge the conversation for today. So if you say hello into the chat. Also, she's very open to questions if you have a question and would like to ask it verbally. So please feel free to unmute or put into the chat if you've got a question, and Wendy and I will be monitoring that chat. And again, we'll be recording today's session and make sure that you have access to it and that you can rewatch if you need to. Many of you already did this, so if you already did it, you do not need to do this twice. You only need to submit sketches once. But if you are new to today's session and did not attend the first session, I am going to put the sketch link into the chat. But again, if you already filled out this form, you do not need to fill out this form again. I'll leave it up for just a few more seconds longer. And then if you needed anything else, you can send me a private message in the chat and I'll make sure that you get it. So I am so excited to welcome Wendy Kittler. I was seeking some presenters and had reached out to COABE, and they had recommended her. COABE, speaking from our last session about not just throwing out acronyms, COABE is the Coalition on Adult Basic Education, which is the national arm of Adult Basic, the association. So they provide a lot of professional development opportunities. And she is currently a program advisor for the Arkansas Adult Education State Office. So we were just chatting about her experience in education and her responsibilities. And I'm going to share a little bit about Wendy and her bio. But she really does have an expansive career in education, working in many different levels. And then she's also a local author within her community, and so just has a really dedicated background. So a little bit more about Wendy. Drawing from her background in teaching, creativity, critical thinking, and twice exceptional students, Wendy has a passion for helping teachers understand more about their students. And most of her 20 years in education have been in the setting of rural poverty, which she'll talk about, I think, today in Arkansas, which has allowed her to learn to effectively analyze student barriers and find the best strategies to help them overcome them. She presents with passion and facilitates growth by helping others have their aha moments about their own learning or that of their students. She spent a decade plus time as a gifted and talented coordinator, where she honed her skills in teaching critical thinking skills, creativity, and persistence in learning to students of all ages and abilities. And then she also did whole class enrichment lessons for pre-K through sixth grade. She taught in the area of STEM and robotics. I'm not doing justice to her here. And then currently she has moved into adult education. And like I said, sits at that statewide level. She has experience teaching and leading a local English language learner program. And she continues to work with English language instruction instructors across the state in her particular region. And now in her current role, she serves as a program advisor for Arkansas Adult Education for the Northeast region. And she serves on the Professional Development Committee and provides technical assistance and content trainings. As a student growing up in the East Arkansas, Mississippi River Delta area, Wendy always thought she was bad at math. until she learned as an adult from her favorite professor that she had just never been taught the way her brain understands it. To honor this teacher, Wendy tries to help others understand how their students think so they may be successful as well. So I'm so excited to welcome Wendy Kittler, and I'll turn it over to you. Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you so much, Patrick. And I'm so excited to meet you all. I will tell you, although I got to throw out there right now, I am, of course, very informal. My ADD is off the chain. But if I start waving my arms wildly, it's because in our presentation room, if I just sit too long, the lights go out. So there is a reason if I just wave wildly. Also, my presentation style is, I blurt things out when I'm excited. And so if you're excited and have a question, feel free to unmute and address it. And also at the end, hopefully I'll have time to answer questions and I'll stick around. So let me share my screen. And I would love to see faces. If that is not your thing, I am not going to demand it. So you do what's comfortable for you. Right, and I'm hoping you can all see my slide now. Thank you. So thank you for that wonderful introduction, Patrick. I have passion for this subject, and so I use it in different forms. I presented to gifted and talented conferences. I've presented it to our teachers, our math teachers. And so the first thing I have to say, though, if you're expecting a typical math training, this is not it. I told my last class of teachers, we won't address any numbers all day. And that was a 6-hour class, but it was all math. So I'm going to try and get you to think about addressing students who shy away from math. I'm going to try to get you to think of your job as more of a car salesman, except you're selling math. We're going to trick them into liking it and understanding that they can do it. And of course, I don't really mean trick a student, but they just don't have confidence and know that they have the ability yet. So hopefully through this, I'm going to give you some tools that will help you be able to open their eyes for what they can actually do. I do use work throughout from MC Escher because not only was he a great artist, he was a great mathematician, and the teacher or the professor that woke me up to realize that I was good at math, she used his artwork to help teach me that. She opened my eyes through his artwork. And so that was kind of the theme. And no matter which version or length of training I give on math anxiety, I just have to, this is my favorite version because I think this one has my passion in it, and his artwork throughout just reminds me of how far that we can come with math anxious students. So there are going to be some things in this program that mention kids or parents. We know that adults are different than kids, okay? But humor me for this hour because I just want you to remember the adults that come to us because high school or elementary didn't work for them. And so there can be a hurt little kid inside of them. And so I found out with some of my students that the reason they hated math was because of an early elementary experience. So again, although we know adults learn differently, we've got to at least consider what could have happened in their backgrounds. So we're going to cover several things. And if I go too fast, just slow me down. I get excited. And then with my Southern accent, my own friends are like, what did you say? So if you have to slow me down, that's okay. We're going to talk about strategies to use with math anxious students. We're going to learn how to identify when a student is math anxious. We're going to talk about specific reasoning skills and strategies and some brainstorming activities. I'm also going to show you how to get them from that hurt little kid to an adult learner who can work a problem with confidence, whether they're addressing their high school equivalency test or they're in an IET. I'm hoping that you can find some strategy today that you can walk away with. I will say that nothing in this presentation is really anything I created. As a GT facilitator, my job was really to be a collector of things and resources and an enabler. I enabled students to be able to study things that they loved. Also with my students who were not identified GT, when I had a whole class and I would have SPED students all the way up to the highest of the abled, everyone in that class could learn to make their critical thinking skills better. And so a lot of times in GT, you think, oh, you just had the easy students. Well, no, I had to teach rigor and use rigor in critical thinking, even with those who their teachers didn't think they could do it. And so most of my resources that I used through that I've picked for this presentation come from the Critical Thinking Company, and I will give you their link. I just did not want you to think that I created any of this. I'm just going to show you my methods for how I used them and continue to use them when I train. So here's a few of the topics. I know that looks like a lot, but don't worry, I'll talk fast and we'll get through them. The first thing we need to do is actually define what math anxiety is, or math reluctant. There's several different terms that really kind of mean the same thing. But math anxiety is not some other things. We've got to know what it is and what it isn't. So we're going to talk about some examples. If you are not math anxious, then you might not know what this feeling is, but it's a physical feeling. And think about if you're at, I know that, you know, we're not necessarily at the board anymore, but whether it's at a whiteboard, whether it's a smart board, whether it's online in the chat, think about putting yourself in a student's place. It's math class. You're not good at math class, but you got to do it because maybe that's the last section on the GED you haven't passed yet. Your heart starts racing because you know, I've got a word problem. I hate word problems. I don't even know what the words are all the time. There's numbers, but I don't know what to do with them. Your heart starts racing. Your stomach just goes, oh, your palms grow clammy, and then you're done. Your working memory's used up because you're so anxious. And so most of those students, even if they're not to that level of anxiety, you hear them say, I can't do math. I don't like math. I'll never use it in the real world. I've just got to do it to get my GED. I've just got to do it to pass this class. And I have to admit, I had that anxiety until a teacher changed it for me. So as an educator, you can play a role in helping the student move from one mindset to a growth mindset. So math anxious individuals, they tend to avoid mathematics. Let me tell you, my prime example was balancing my checkbook. I didn't like numbers, didn't want to do it. Now they have wonderful apps these days that fix that for me. I can see what comes and goes, but if a student just consistently avoids math, they do everything but math. Well, no, let me just try to get one more level in language. Let me just try to get one more level. I think I can pass my science. Well, then they may be math anxious. That may keep them from having a career that they would love. The thing is, when a student's performance increases even a little bit, then their anxiety will go down. So as they get more and more success, then they're less and less anxious. And so that was a study done by Imagine America in 2017. And so all of the links should work except for one that I'll point out. Here are some some real definitions of math anxiety. I like to make up words. My friends call them Wendyisms. And so as I go throughout a presentation, I want to point out that it's not just me coming up with this theory, that there is research behind it. And some of the research that I like, that I just, as a math anxious person, I just really feel passionate about and connect with, goes back to 1972. So this is not a new issue. Another view of math anxiety, how it makes you feel, the tension. But what causes it? There's several different causes. Sometimes you, as a teacher, you feel like it's you, but it's not. If you're button heads with a student over math, don't take it personally. Start thinking about the situation they come from and think about what you might not know. So I'm hoping to share a video with you. And Patrick, if the sound does not work, would you let me know? Sound now?
I don't hear any sound.
Let me do one more thing. Did you see anything?
No.
Yeah. Let me get to the one I want, and then I think maybe I can share again. And if it's too troublesome, we won't. And I can just summarize, but I've got some really good videos I love. How about now?
When friend
Okay,
Oh,
one more
I
thing.
heard a little bit of noise there.
Oh, you did? Okay, let me make
Uh-huh.
it louder in a second.
mathematician Laurent Schwartz was in high
How about
school,
now?
he started to worry that he wasn't smart enough to solve math problems. Maybe you know a similar feeling. You sit down to take a math test and you feel your heart beat faster and your palms start to sweat. You get butterflies in your stomach and you can't concentrate. This phenomenon is called math anxiety. And if it happens to you, you're not alone. Researchers think about 20% of the population suffers from it. Some psychologists even consider it a diagnosable condition. But having mathematical anxiety doesn't necessarily mean you're bad at math.
Not even close. Laurent Schwartz went on to win the Fields Medal, the highest award in mathematics. People might think that they're anxious about math
because they're bad at it. But it's often the other way around. They're doing poorly in math because they're anxious about it. Some psychologists think that's because math anxiety
decreases a cognitive resource called working memory. That's the short-term memory system that helps you organize the information you need to complete a task. Worrying about being able to solve math problems or not doing well on a test eats up working memory, leaving less of it available to tackle the math itself. People can suddenly struggle with even basic math skills like arithmetic that they've otherwise mastered. Academic anxiety certainly isn't limited to math, but it does seem to happen much more frequently and cause more harm in that subject. So why would that be? Researchers aren't yet sure, but some studies suggest that the way children are exposed to math by their parents and teachers play a large part. If parents talk about math like something challenging and unfamiliar, children can internalize that. Teachers with math anxiety are also likely to spread it to their students. Pressure to solve problems quickly dials up stress even more. And in some cultures, being good at math is a sign of being smart in general. When the stakes are that high, it's not surprising that students are anxious. Even Miriam Mizrakhani, an influential mathematician who was the first woman to win the Fields Medal, felt unconfident and lost interest in mathematics because her math teacher in middle school didn't think she was talented. So if you experience mathematical anxiety, what can you do? Relaxation techniques like short breathing exercises have improved test performance in students with math anxiety. Writing down your worries can also help. This strategy may give you a chance to re-evaluate a stressful experience, freeing up working memory. And if you have the chance, physical activity like a brisk walk deepens breathing and helps relieve muscle tension, preventing anxiety from building. You can also use your knowledge about the brain to change your mindset. The brain is flexible, and the areas involved in math skills can always grow and develop. This is a psychological principle called the growth mindset. Thinking of yourself as someone who can grow and improve can actually help you grow and improve. If you're a teacher or parent of young children, try being playful with math and focusing on the creative aspects. That can build the numerical skills that help students approach math with confidence later on. Importantly, you should give children the time and space to work through their answers. And if you're an administrator, make sure teachers have the positive attitudes and mathematical confidence necessary to inspire confidence in all of their students. Also, don't let anyone spread the myth that boys are innately better than girls at math. That is completely false. If you experience math anxiety,
All right, I was trying to cut out of it. All right. Now, remember, I told you in the beginning, right, that you were going to hear the words child and parent. This is one of the ones I was talking about. Replace that kind of with, instead of parent, think of teacher, and instead of the child, think of your adult ed student. Because really, that's what they grew up to be, is the adults in your classroom. My high school teacher said to me on more than one occasion, why can't you do this? You're supposed to be smart. You're in GT. Why can't you do math? Left a lasting effect. So, again, we're a lot of things as teachers. One of those things is usually a counselor. So part of this is learning to counsel. All right, let me share my screen again, and we'll go back to the PowerPoint. Thank you for your patience. I'm juggling a few more things than I normally do when I present remotely, but I didn't want to leave any resources out. All right, how's that? Okay, good deal. There you go. There. And so all of that I've said so far, I mean, that's just mushy feely stuff. It's nothing you can use really. But the deal is, whatever happened to that little kid way back when that messed with their math in their head, you didn't cause it. We can fuss about it. We can bang our head in the wall. We can teach the same way as hard as we can over and over again. But if they're not going to get it, you're going to have to think about why they're not getting it. You've got to deal with their anxiety, even if you didn't cause it. We know it's not our fault as teachers. We know that they come from different cultures, different backgrounds, but as teachers, we didn't start it, but we've got to fix it. So there's research that points to any of these things that could affect how a student feels about themselves in math. Past experiences, which obviously have hit me hard, instructional errors. I'm here to tell you, I've been a math teacher unwillingly before. I can learn it a day or two ahead of the students, but that doesn't mean I'm good at it. So they may have had teachers in the same situation that were out of their league and out of their area. They could have had some foundational instructional errors that you've got to pinpoint. Communication barriers, language, English language learners. They may have had a teacher like my son did in high school who just didn't care. Quality of instruction again. Maybe there was a math teacher who was teaching a subject he didn't want to teach. Maybe he didn't like low level. Maybe he was a trigonometry teacher and he had to teach algebra 1 or pre-algebra. Gender bias, age, all of these things. These are just some of the things that could have an impact on causing math anxiety. Now, I told you that we would talk about what math anxiety was not. My personal opinion, if you can kind of treat, now again, we're not medically treating, but as a teacher, if you can address and treat math anxiety as if it stands alone, That will help you figure out whether or not you have an additional issue. My background also is in twice exceptional students, students who are both gifted and have a learning disability or physical disability. So we're going to look now at math anxiety versus dyscalculia. Some of the videos say dyscalculia, some say dyscalculia. I'm from the South, I'll probably mess it up anyway. So you pick the way you want to say it, but regardless, what we're talking about will not fix dyscalculia. I'm not going to play this entire story, I don't think, but if I can get it to work, I would really love to share this because this is from an adult learner's perspective. He wasn't, excuse me, he was in higher ed, but still he could very much be a student in any of our programs. Now, cross your fingers as I first go and then share my screen.
So college for me,
Hold on. Oh, we got it. Oh, good. Okay. Didn't switch on my screen, so let me try one more time. Stop share there. My other device is not seeing what I think you should be. Okay, so going to share screen again. Haha.
was both somewhat exciting but extremely
Can you hear me
intimidating.
too?
All my life, I struggled with math. I could not do math to save my life. 2 plus 2 literally boggled my mind. I was just fractions, decimals, and then you get into algebra where you start mixing like letters with numbers. No, I can't do it. I never could do it. And I remember I got kind of labeled, and I was always put in like the special ed classes for math students, and I just couldn't do it. And I could eventually do it if I studied super hard, and I could grasp it for about a day, but then after that I would forget it. And I was eventually diagnosed with what's called dyscalculia, and it's like dyslexia, but it's with numbers instead of letters. And it's a math disability that actually a lot of people struggle with, especially with numbers. And so for me, math was extremely hard. And in college, you have to know how to do math. You have to know how to add and subtract and division, simple math. But then also there's algebra and pre-algebra and calculus and just heavier courses that I was going to need in order to graduate. And so that was another reason why I wanted to be a helicopter pilot, is because helicopter pilots don't need a college degree. You need flight time, you need the hours, and then you fly. And so that was kind of the only option that I had for myself, and I limited myself a little bit. But I also believe that if you persist and persist, and you get really good at networking, and you get good at asking questions, and leaning on people for support, and looking for avenues and ways to still accomplish your dreams, it's amazing what happens. I think a lot of people, sometimes they just see the wall, but they don't see the possibility, the potential. They don't see the other avenues that you could go to get around the wall. They don't think about the strategies that you could take to jump over the wall, or start chipping away to get through the wall. And so I had that mentality, thankfully, that I needed a college degree in order to be able to still function and provide for a future family, and hopefully find a career at this point in my life that I enjoyed and liked. And so for me, going back to school was huge. I had this lady, her name was Shelley Burrow, and she had done testing where they basically test showing your disability and your logical thinking and what you can and cannot do through your mental capacity, your abilities, your strengths and your weaknesses. And then she compiles a report, and then every campus has what's called a disability services. And so I went to Shelley, and she did all these tests, and again found out because of dyscalculia, And my brain, how it works, math was just extremely difficult for me. But my other skills in speaking or communicating or logical thinking were exceptional. And I was able to still function and be a normal person, I guess. And so she compiled this. We took this report to the disability services, and they ended up letting me graduate from college. That's right, I graduated from college without taking one math class. Well, actually, that's not true. I did take one math class, but I failed out of it. I flunked out of it, couldn't do it. But after that, I didn't have to take another math class. I had to take a logical thinking and ethical writing class, and that counted as my math credit. I was a communications major. I studied speech communication and then also emphasized in leadership through the Center for the Advancement of Leadership at UVU, which is one of the highest ranked leadership programs in the country for college students. And so that was an amazing experience. So I embarked into the college journey with this opportunity to get me through where I didn't have to take a math class. I graduated college with a 3.7 GPA. Had an amazing experience through that, and it was all because a huge part was possible because of Shelley Burrow, and she made that dream possible for me.
Now, how awesome was that? I mean, you can tell right there, teachers make a difference. You are making a difference in what you do. Now, me, stop share. Ha-ha. I'm always excited when something with technology works. I haven't really shut up long enough for anyone to say anything or jump in. Before I go on, does anyone have a burning comment or question that they just need to get out? All right, well, I'm going to keep rolling then. Just keep in mind that math anxiety that we've been talking about is not a disability. Dyscalculia is. So we can use our strategies to try, if we don't have a diagnosis, we can use our strategies for math anxiety and see if they work over time. If we are not making any progress, then we need to bring in someone who has the skills to run those tests. You may have to bring a psychological tester to your program. You may be able, if you're in a rural area, I know in Arkansas, we were talking at our WIO partners meeting yesterday that we have a psychological examiner available in every county to get with, even if someone can't come to the office, there's a way to get them tested, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So first strategy, you can't bring in a tester for every person right off the bat. Try math anxiety if they hate math, if they won't touch it, if they're scared of it. Then after a while, call in the big leagues. We can't do everything. So dyscalculia is really something that we need help with. Now, let me go back because you are not seeing what I'm seeing. And I don't want to run off and lose you because I'm good at doing that.
Is dyscalculia, it refers to it as, math dyslexia in some of the literature. Are we thinking of like transposing numbers, or is there more to it than that?
In theory, that's the main thing, but I think that's just the layman's terms. I think there's much more to it, but you will probably see it as either switching numbers or even not be able to tell the numbers apart. In that way, I think it's primarily, dealing with the actual flipping numbers, seeing numbers, not knowing what to do with them. I'm not diagnosed, but I can just tell you a little bit of what I think it would look like just from having other students. My mom loves, I can't even say the word Sudoku. Is that hate? Okay. She loves those stinking puzzles. I hate them. Why do I hate them? They have numbers in them. if she gets a book though that has letters or colors, then I'm able to work them. But it's the actual seeing the number on the page that gives me a problem. Now, I do not have dyscalculia, but that would be an example of just the very, very tip of the iceberg of someone who had it, dyscalculia, because everything they tried to do in math would be like that potentially. Does that help? And I'm not going to claim to be an expert. I'm just a cheerleader who likes to cheer what other people do and make other people aware. And so there are some good resources for you. See, I'm getting excited and going too fast. Let's see if I missed it. Okay, I didn't miss it. Good. There's going to come up a video that I'm going to skip for time. But if you are interested in the difference between math anxiety and dyscalculia, then it will give you a jumping off point and just tell you a little bit about the differences. So just a reminder that the children that grow up with anxiety are now the adults who you're teaching with anxiety. This is the video I was telling you about. It's short, but it's really good. So when you get the PowerPoint, and I'll send it to Patrick, and however y'all push things out, feel free to go ahead and check this out. Now you can have anxiety combined with dyscalculia. I mean, naturally, if you couldn't tell if a number was which way or up, or if you just shut down, if you tried to learn a fraction, well, that would make me anxious. So they can go hand in hand, but there is a part that's actually going to have, psychological testing done. That's a true disability. It can be treated, but as just your average teacher, we need more help to be able to identify that and treat that. So I encourage you to check this video out on your own. Just a little graphic that I like. If I had this when I had a classroom, this would be on the wall for my older students. It's just showing them that the way they feel, there's a name for it. There's a reason. They're not the only ones, because you can truly get in your head and think you're the only one. So finally, now that we know what it is, we know what it's not, let's get to some tips for overcoming math anxiety. And again, I did pull from research, but I'm not sharing with you everything there is. I'm sharing with you what I've used and what I like and what I've seen work. So here's the evidence that says, some of the evidence that says math anxiety can be overcome. So here are some steps to do it. That last one, make math fun. If you are a very sequential thinker and math makes sense to you every step of the way, you never had to work for it, this part may be a stretch for you. So you may have to learn how to break loose. I'm going to show you where there is a video to check out a teacher who actually dresses up in costumes. I know that at some levels people think that's unprofessional. That's why do you need to just teach it? They're adults, they should look at it and learn. Well, adults have a choice whether they come to our program and sit in class or not. I know it's our job to teach, not entertain. But if you really want to get someone engaged, you are going to make it fun. So I think I'm going to end up making that last point, moving it up to the front, because it is so important. If math class is miserable for them, then it's going to be even a harder struggle to come. And our students just have so many barriers already. Let's not add boredom as another one. Use mixed ability groups sometimes. Don't get hung up on memorization and making them memorize things that now, this one's a hard one for me, because I just think that third graders should know the multiplication tables. I taught second grade for 5 years, and before I sent them to third grade, I had them where I wanted them to learn up to the 5 tables, at least. And so it's taken me a decade at least to get over that. We want students to be able to understand how to do math, not memorize 9 times 16. So anyway, it may be hard for you like it is hard for me to give up on that, but like my 18, he had a birthday last week. My 18-year-old twice exceptional son said, Mom, I carry a calculator and a computer everywhere I go. It's in my pocket. I'm like, whatever, kid, I get it. Take time to answer questions. You may have to help them find out what their questions really are, because if a student's anxious, they may not even be able to tell you how they're lost. You know, you're going to have to help them figure out where they're getting stuck. Positive reinforcement, mindfulness. You want to read math books and talk about math and reading together. Math is really cross-curricular. My good friend Diane Doyle is our high school equivalency coordinator, and I told you we do trainings together. And the issue that most people miss with math and the GED is the reading. They don't understand the problems they read. And so I do have some things to show you that will help them practice that logic in a fun way that won't be intimidating. All right, let me see how I'm doing on time. 23 minutes. Let me come back to this, okay? This is a very valuable video. It's about karaoke. I've never karaoke, never been to it, want to, but I can't think of any other situation that would make me more fearful or have anxiety anymore than karaoke. But this is a wonderful study that was done about taking that anxiety about doing something, no matter what it is, and just by saying, I'm excited instead of I'm scared or I'm nervous, it made performance 17% better on 2 different things and 22% better on math. So this is a really cute video, and I encourage showing these videos to your classes so they know that they are not alone. This is a common thing across not just the US, but across the world. I think it's probably more prevalent in the US just because of how we've done things for a while. But anyway, if we have time, we'll come back to this. If not, I want you to check it out on your own. So you are the math expert to your students, and you can break the cycle. You might help them by showing them what the cycle is, that it's not their fault they keep getting anxious. It's just that anxious means you might miss a problem, and then you miss a problem, so you're like, oh, I don't know what to do. I'm not even going to think about this next math test. Well, then you do worse, so you get more guilt, more anxiety. So help them recognize that cycle so that they can break it. This is an anchor chart. I know this looks very K-12-ish. It's not. You can make it appropriate for your room, but you might break it up and introduce 2 or 3 of these at a time. Again, you're just reframing their mindset and trying to get them in a different way of thinking. Another good video, when you go to this one, I want you to start at 8 minutes. And I've got it written here for you to remember. Start at 8 minutes and go to 10 minutes and 25 seconds, around there, or if you can make it to 11 minutes, it's even better. This is Yay Math, and it's a blog, and this teacher, it shows him at the whiteboard actually teaching a class. I'm not sure if it's high school or if it's adult ed, but the dressing up I was telling you about, the just being silly, making math fun. Now, I know not everyone is going to go all out like this guy, but I want you to see the engagement that it gets from those students. All right, so when you are working with some reluctant students, now, I was so bad at this at first. I like when people are happy, and I don't want them to feel bad about themselves. So when students got stuck, I wanted to help them through it as fast as I could so they wouldn't feel bad. But that does not help them. You want them to get stuck. you don't want to fix it for them, at least right away. It's really all about that zone of proximal development. I'm old. I don't know if anyone else is still referencing ZPD, but that zone of proximal development, help them where they are and then move a step above. So Kate Mills, and I think I've got her information in the resources, she would give her problems, students problems that she knew would make them feel stuck and frustrated. But she was there to help, but not until she told them, I want you to try this yourself, work through it and see what you can do to get unstuck. And then she would ask them these questions. What was your first step? What are you doing now? What will you try next? How did you get unstuck if you did? If you can get a student who got unstuck, chances are they're going to be able to explain what they did to another student. My 12th graders would do this with algebra or other classes they didn't, where they got stuck and the teacher didn't speak their language in math. So in GT class, we would use our language. GT class is just kind of a weird place. We relished, at least in my class, we relished in our weirdness. But the student that got unstuck themselves was the best one to teach to the others. Also, another problem for me early on, giving enough wait time. You can tell I like to talk, and I wanted, again, to make the student happy, so I didn't want them to be uncomfortable. But that wait time is so important, because if a student has anxiety about math, they feel like they have to answer right away, and it's either going to be right or wrong. They've got a 50-50 chance, but in reality, it's more like, oh my goodness, I know I'm going to be wrong. But they need about 10 seconds minimum to process just the question and start coming up with an answer. Minimal wait time does not encourage critical thinking. And this says 3 seconds of undisturbed wait time. 3 seconds does not sound like a lot, but when I started actually in my head counting out 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, I realized, oh my goodness, I had not even been giving 1 second wait time. It really did change the way that I taught. So the benefits for students, you get fewer, I don't know, because they're actually thinking about the question before they answer. They know you're going to give them time and you're going to expect them to come up with an answer. You're going to get longer answers. You're going to start getting more correct answers. And of course, test scores are going to go up if all that happens. More students are going to start volunteering to answer. They're going to open it up. And the Yay Math video will show you students just, blurting out answers and just all engaged. So that's how you move a student. The benefits for you, which I don't know if my students are benefiting, really, it's benefiting me too. But the benefits for teachers, you're going to be able to ask more kinds of questions, not just that lower level question. You're going to really be able to get up there on the depth of knowledge and get to the meat. You won't have to ask as many questions because they'll be deeper. And then you will be able to ask follow-up questions that help them develop even further their higher level understanding. I am going to quick through this pretty quick, but if you will Google math anxiety questionnaires, there are tons. This is what Ellen Friedman's looks like. You can do it with students. It helps them just informally gauge how high their anxiety is about math. Might be helpful, kind of like they used to say in G.I. Joe on the cartoon, knowing is half the battle. Well, help your students understand why they feel like they feel. And then this was another wake-up call for me. I think you pronounce this name Baylock. If not, please correct me. But as Baylock pointed out, no one walks around bragging that they can't read. They try and hide it, right? But it's perfectly socially acceptable to say you don't like math. Oh, I hate math. You too, you don't like it? Yeah, well, we won't use math. There's not a problem with that. People feel fine saying that. I was guilty of that. When I first started in this position at the state, I was open with teachers when I worked with curriculum. I'm like, I'm not a mathy person, kind of like I want them to know I don't want to claim to be something I'm not. But I realized, no, I am mathy. I'm just progressing and I'm better than I think. So, but it's socially acceptable to say you don't like math. Remember, math is good for you, makes you a better problem solver. It helps you enjoy the world better. I'm not going to click through here, but this link will tell you an example of why you need math. It's going to take you to CNA math skills. This was posted in links, and then as well math in welding. This is a strategy that I got from a GED book. You remember I told you about with the GED, the reading is the most, it's really the most blamed thing. They don't tell you the most missed question anymore, but it's typically the reading that's the issue. So having steps that students can follow and getting them in a pattern, and I'll show you how to get them in a pattern on some other things. Think about the title, then tell students to dot it. They just read through quickly. If they think, oh, that might be an answer, put a dot by it. Well, then after they read it, check what they think the real answer is, just check mark it. And then if they're just doing practice, we'll diagnose it. If they missed it, then help them figure out why they missed it. And if they're hung up, take corrective action. Okay, now this is an example. Little boy goes shopping and purchases 12 tomatoes. On the way home, all but 9 get mushed and ruined. How many tomatoes are left in good condition? Well, the old me would have started, stopping and looking for numbers, but think about it. All but 9. Did we have to do any math? We didn't. It was all in the reading. That's why our students don't pass the high school equivalency in math, because they don't use logic in their reading. There are more activities like that with the dotting and the check mark and the process that teaching students in a pattern. I found this on Amazon. Someone told me it was good. I hunted it up. I don't believe is in print anymore, but there are copies available. Now, I told you there were 2 links that were no longer good, and I believe it's these 2 links. They gave me some problems, but here are some two-tier vocabulary words that your students need to know how to do when they come to reading. And this was provided from our GED coordinator. All right, now to the fun part, the part that makes me excited. I know you're like, oh, I sat through all this and we haven't even done a puzzle yet. Okay, so I have used the strategies I'm going to show you with my kindergartners all the way up to my 12th graders. And you see on this book, it's level grades 4 through 6. Pay no attention to the grades. They mean nothing. Don't let your students see them because it will make them sad. When I started with this, I used them with the grade levels they said. It did not work because my students never had the logic background. They never had the beginning steps. So even with my 12th graders, I started like with a grade 9 with my 12th graders. And this is throughout all the critical thinking puzzles. They could not do it. They were frustrated. And I said, do you want me to bring the level I'm doing with my younger students? They said, yes, please. I took them all the way back to that kindergarten level. And it only took them a couple of times to get what it was getting at. And then they would fly through them. But these grade levels mean nothing if your students come from a background where they're weak in math. So these are thinkograms, or there's different names for them. That's just what this book calls them. What is the one on the left? Feel free to unmute. Pair of pants. Then you've got All in the Family. Now these are some easy ones. There are harder ones in there, but you've got
1 million.
1 in a million. Thank you. How about the other one?
Sideburns.
Sideburns. Thank you. Anyone take a stab at either of those?
Horsing around.
Perfect. Thank you.
Star Spangled Banner.
Star Spangled Banner. Thank you. So these, you would think there's not a number in them.
I'm looking over 4-leaf clover.
Yeah. Although that you might think, oh, they won't know that phrase. They won't know that. I think that's a song, maybe. They
Yeah.
won't know that. Doesn't matter because they can use logic to get it. So how about the other one?
Nine lives.
Oh,
9 lives.
jeez.
I know they're so corny, but they crack students up. Now, how I use those, I've used them a couple of ways. I took all that, like I would keep one level together in a binder. And so for, I've still got them. They're just, of course, you know, if you're a teacher and something is good, you're going to laminate it. I've still got my laminated, just they're like on a ring or with a plastic binder on them, and I would just flip through them, put the answers on the back, because you will get stumped. And it's kind of like when you're writing on a board and you see the word "the" and it's like, did I spell that wrong? The same thing with these puzzles. Always put the answer, because even if you've done it 1,000 times, it's going to look weird. But this is what we're trying to get our students to learn, that, you know, sometimes if you're extremely lucky, everything goes smoothly, but sometimes something you don't expect to happen happens. Here the pencil breaks. Well, what you need to do is be able to know how to turn those problems into solutions. And so I love sharing this graphic with my students. Oh, with the, I meant to tell you, let me go back a minute. I told you I used the plastic binders with the word puzzles. I did something different when I taught these strategies to my teachers about a month ago. I separated them by types. Some of them have to do with how many times the word's repeated. Some of them have to do with where the word is on the page. Some of them have to do with the shape, like with the horsing around. Some have to do with the stars in the banner. So, all right. Here's why you should use brain teasers to develop reasoning skill. I know that brain teasers are not on the high school equivalency, but they develop that logic that they need to read that question in the first place and actually know what's happening. These are ways to build confidence. Now, this is from the publishers, what the publishers say. I like these, but I'm going to throw in some others too. Here is use the expression, you are so hardworking. You know, you don't have to tell them you're doing great, because they may not do great for a while. But back in the dyscalculia video, when the adult learner was saying, I had to persist and persist. Did you catch that? He had to learn to be persistent. And that's what we're trying to get our students to do. So if they're not doing good, you don't have to tell them they're doing good, but you can tell them you are working so hard. And I think that's awesome. So help them become persistent. So a little more reasoning. Now here's Wendy's tips for doing this next sort of puzzle. These are not the publisher's guidelines, they're mine. So until becoming comfortable with a certain type of puzzle, stick with one brand. Like if you want to do a logic matrix, don't go searching for one on the internet and get one of those and then get one out of this book and get one out of this book, because some of them might have slightly different rules. So you might want to stick with the ones in one book before you add a stray one. Another suggestion is you want to practice teaching one puzzle multiple times in your head or act it out before you teach it to a class. Now, once you have it down in your head, like I taught these, the last time I had students physically in a classroom was, I've done some remote teaching since then, but it was 4 years ago roughly to, I think I've used these 10 years before that. Anyway, when I teach these to my teachers, I do it blind. I use puzzles that I've done before, but I don't work them through to remind myself, because I want to get stuck as if I was a student seeing it for the first time, so they can see how you get unstuck. Okay, don't do that starting out if you don't know the answer, because they're going to catch you and it's going to get ugly. But once you got that process, then you want to model for them how to either fix a mistake, first of all, recognize a mistake, and then get unstuck. Any questions? Okay, and Patrick, I know I'm getting close on time, so do you need me to wrap it up yet?
Yeah, maybe a couple more minutes, 2 more minutes.
Good deal. I'm going to give you some quick things about logic matrices. This brand is one I really like, but if you search for one, say on the internet, and saw this, well, this is not too easy. An adult learner could probably not start off with this, but it is insulting. It is childish. Now, this one is very adult looking, but it's too hard. If I was given this, I'd turn around and walk off and leave. You've got to find what the right fit is for your level of students. They all have, it's all based on process of elimination. And then I've used them in multiple different ways. I even taught how to do a logic matrix for my job interview for this position. It was fun. I did it with a matrix movie theme. Here is the critical thinking company. This is where I buy most of my books that I use for critical thinking with adults. So it's criticalthinking.com. Highly recommend it. These are my favorite books. The building thinking skills. Again, do not look at the grade levels. Don't let your students see the grade levels, because they do not have the appropriate base. Mind benders are, they've got a good variety. The think analogies, I do a lot with, I start with shapes. I teach analogies through shapes, and it's through using these groups of books. And I do not get anything from the critical thinking company. I'm not connected with them. I've never talked to them. I've just spent lots of money with them. But these have been the best tools that I have found. We don't start here with analogies. We start with shapes. Okay, they can get there, but there's not a number in here. A math anxious person could start with that and they would probably excel. Do not start at this level. Make them confident first with, again, that zone of proximal development. If your firewall will not let you get to this, you may have to do it on your personal device. But the National Library of Virtual Manipulatives, NLVM, if you've not tried this or checked this out, yeah, I see a thumbs up from somebody. I loved this. And I had to work with my IT guy at K-12 to finally get access, because it was very, very helpful, and it's adult appropriate. For some apps, I went through a lot and updated. There are some I would not get, because as a math anxious person with ADD, I would not stick with it. But this is one that I think is adult appropriate. It's a good level, and it's not childish. I mean, you can see it's simple pictures, but not childish. Algebra Touch, I like. Huda Math is a little bit childish, but it is very good, and it's intuitive. And then here are some of the resources I told you about. Now, what I really wanted to do, but I never have enough time, that's where I take this training and stretch it into 6 hours. Well, 5 really. And I go through and I teach teachers how to do the logic strategies, how to work a full puzzle, and I model it with them. I'm thinking about doing some recorded clips. If you would like to see that, email me, let me know, and I'll come up with that. I just didn't want to torture you prematurely. So If you need me for anything, please let me know. I don't answer my cell phone because I'm always in meetings, but I do respond to text. So email me or text me and let me know if I can help you anyway. And thank you so much for giving me the honor to be with you. And I will stick around to check the chat, or if Patrick has any time for questions now. Patrick, I'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wendy. I historically have not always been a liker of math, but you have given me a lot of enthusiasm and energy just about now. I feel like I got to go like do a Sudoku puzzle or something. So
I know, right?
thank
It's almost
you.
contagious once you feel a
It
little bit
is.
of success. So thank
It
you.
really is. And just thinking about that community of culture and collaboration that we all can build within our program. So thank you for that. Any questions or comments for Wendy before we end for our lunch break?
I just wanted to say, as somebody that has ADHD and test anxiety and a couple other challenges, it's something I really appreciated to see you come right out and talk about that. It's something that's really hard in front of students, coworkers, etc. Sometimes embarrassing, but to see somebody come out and talk about it right out of the gate is really nice and reassuring, kind of to know it happens to a lot of us and it's still possible to be successful. So thank you for that. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you for that feedback. Helps me to feel better that I'm not the only one. So thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you, Robert. Well, this has been wonderful. Thank you. Well, I should count 3 Mississippi, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. This has been wonderful. Thank you so much, Wendy. We'll share out this information and just appreciate your expertise and sharing with us and taking some time on this Friday. And come to Michigan. We'd love to have you and visit. So,
Oh, sounds great. I bet it's a much more enjoyable temperature than Arkansas. So thank you. Thank you. And would it be possible to leave the chat up so I could look through it and answer it?
absolutely. Yeah, you and I will stay on. We'll let everyone pause, and we're on a lunch break now, folks, until 12:15. And then our last session will start at 12:15 with the USA Learns presenters. We're excited about that. So thank you all for coming. Hope you have a nice little lunch break. And Wendy and I will stay on. If anyone else has any other questions or comments too, you can stay on too, but take care.